The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are in the country. It's Mark from SolidCAM. We'll be starting our 30-minute free training session for SolidCAM Live. With me, as always, is Kevin Rankel. Hey, Kevin.
Hey, everyone.
So Kevin's extra perky for a Friday afternoon, but we're going to start. It's Friday. So today I actually have something that's a follow-up to what Kevin had presented, or I guess was brought up in Kevin's presentation this week on Tuesday night in KevCam. And I think there was a question. I always watch the KevCam and I wrote down what it was, but I forget exactly what the question was. But I have something that to show related to that, and it is wrapped pocketing, but with multiple depths is what we're going to do on this part. And then I just went continuing the idea of wrapped pockets and what you could do with them in another part. So let's start with the follow-up to the KevCam. So I believe the question in the KevCam was, is there a way to do multiple depths even though you're doing wrapped pocket? The answer is yes, because even though you're choosing wrap geometry in your profile, wrap geometry in your pocketing, it is still a pocket or a profile toolpath. So all those buttons are still there. Now, in certain cases, maybe wrapping whatever it is you're trying to do might not actually work because it might collapse, but in terms of multiple depths, it works. So let's take a look at this toolpath that I have here. So if anyone has been playing around with the YouTube channel and gone on the C-axis wrap video, you recognize this part. I have two pockets where I don't remember if the walls are necessarily in the right direction for wrap pocketing, but these are wrapped pockets. They are centered around the x-axis. And if I bring up my cross section here, we can take a look at those pockets there. So basically for the geometry, if I just click on edit geometry, we can see that I chose those two chains, the top edges of those two pockets. And if you haven't done this before, if you haven't done wrap pocketing, essentially what you do is when you go to choose your geometry for pocketing or profile, in the geometry type, you click on wrapped, and then you tell it what coordinate system you like to wrap it around. In this case, I'm wrapping it around my x-axis, which is the rotary on this machine.
Hey, Mark,
so with wrap
curiosity, how did you chain those with since they're open there?
They're not open. This is the cross section.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I just brought it up because we're going to talk about multi-depth, and I want to show how I have them at different depths. But yes, exactly. What you could do here also is if this was not a pocketing toolpath, but a profiling toolpath, you can still use the wrap geometry despite the fact that they're open. If you were trying to close this pocket, then to Kevin's question, I would probably either sketch something or I would use point-to-point and just try and close that gap. Because remember, when you do wrapped, everything becomes wrapped around the x-axis. Or whatever axis you choose. So if you just do a point-to-point from one point to another, even though it's a straight line, all of that gets projected to the tool plane. In the case of wrapping, it will kind of be projected to the tool plane, but in a wrap. I think I've been able to get away with it before. It's probably not entirely accurate for the pocket, but it is something you can do to kind of close the gap. But in this case, I'm just using the cross-section view so we can actually see down the pocket when we talk about the depths. But that's basically it for pocketing and profiling geometry. You just choose the geometry type of wrapped, and then you choose your geometry. In this case, this one was nicely tangential, so I just had my tangent propagation turned on, single click, and it grabbed the pocket. Everything after that is still the pocketing or the profiling toolpath. So all that functionality is the same. That's basically what we're going to talk about today. If you were doing multiple pockets in the level section, you'd be able to click on variable levels, and then give your pockets variable levels. So you can see with chain 1, which I don't remember which one's chain 1, but I have it going to the full depth. For chain 2, I actually have it only going to 50. And this being wrap geometry, actually I have it set down to 100th out depths. If we take a look at that toolpath, the wrap pocket goes all the way down to the bottom there. This is also a wrap pocket, but it only goes down to 250. So you still have the ability to do variable depths in a pocketing or profile toolpath, even if it's wrapped. So you have that ability there with separate chains and multi-depth. Does that make sense? Any questions on that?
Well, definitely makes sense. I think when we were doing it in the night class, we were trying to look at it in the pocket
recognition.
Yep.
Yeah, now I remember. So pocket recognition, because it's solid based, essentially you're generating pocketing toolpaths, but because it's a solid-based toolpath, there's nothing about that that can yield itself to being wrapped. And at this point, I don't know if we have a wrapped or rotary solid-based one other than the rotary machining, the screw machining, or just general 5-axis simultaneous toolpath. So we do have something, but it doesn't work exactly the same way. There's a little more depth control in those than this one and so forth. But if you're looking for that ability to just choose a chain and then just give it a depth like you would in pocketing, this is the way to do it. And because there's multiple selection filters and all that stuff, it's not actually that hard. You could actually just choose a face, grab the edges, or tangent propagation, constant Z. There's lots of different filters in the geometry selection. But once you choose your geometry, it is still that same toolpath. So you have variable levels, you have all the other stuff that I'm about to show you in the other windows, or the other part. But that's basically it right there. You have the ability to do multiple depths for multiple pockets, as long as they're separate chains. Okay, so let's get out of here, and let's go to the other part where done some stuff. It took some time to create it only because I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to put in there. But what I'm going to show you here is with wrap geometry, it doesn't necessarily have to start as wrap geometry. And I show that with the other part. If you've ever seen the C-axis wrap video, I actually show how I start from planar geometry and then I wrap it using the toolpath itself. So let's get into my design model. And let's start with my first sketch. So I have some text there that I'm going to engrave on my part. SolidCAM Live with Mark and Kevin.
We're famous.
In the engraving, geometry isn't valid. That's nice. That's always good to just have that pop up like that. Geometry isn't valid. That's awesome. Okay, well, I'm not going to recalculate it, but basically in this toolpath, I've chosen that text geometry, and then if you've ever done the engraving toolpath, or I think we covered it in a previous SolidCAM Live class, I also wrapped that around the outside face. I gave it its diameter and all that. Actually, let's see if I can at least edit this one. All right, I'm going to start fresh on this one because I'm not sure what's going on. So let's go add engraving because I want to show you the specific way I got this planar text to work. In this case, we're just going to go new geometry, go down here to add chain. And with my text filter, now I can just hover my mouse over the text. It automatically selects that text entity because that's all one piece of text from my sketch. Turns that into chain geometry that can be used in this. You notice I didn't use the wrapped because this thing is not wrapped itself. It's still just a flat piece of sketch geometry. So I'll leave it as flat. But how I get it to wrap is eventually when I get to it. So again, we'll just go through this. I'm going to choose my tool. So I'll use my tool 2 in this case. Levels. So because this is flat, but it's not actually part of the geometry, I have to give it my own levels. I know that this is a radius of 3, so I'm going to leave it as upper level 3 in that Z direction. And my depth, let's put in just the 10 thou of depth because we're engraving. I'm just going to do 10 thou engraving. Technology, we'll do this as the center. And that's pretty much it. If this was just a regular engraving toolpath, that's what I would do. But I want this thing to be wrapped, but the geometry itself didn't start as wrapped. Well, I'll go to motion control, engage the 4th axis. This is happening on the diameter, so I'll turn on diameter. And now I just give it these particulars here. So the center plane of my rotation is Z = 0 plane, so basically the center of the rotary. The diameter that I'd like it to be wrapped around is 6 inch, because that's my part. And the axis that I'm wrapping it around is the x-axis, so it's just a parallel at Z = 0. Save and calculate. Feed on in range because there was something wrong when I set this up. It thinks everything's in metric. So rather than going whatever that is, let's just put in 60. And there you go. So now that geometry is wrapped around the part just by starting with that planar geometry. Like that. And since that's pretty much the same thing, let's see if we can do a solid verify on that just to show how that works. Okay. And you'll notice it went all the way around, and that's because when I designed this in the sketch, I actually figured out how wide or how long that sketch should be to wrap all the way around. That's just the basic math. So here's me being a dick on a Friday afternoon. Kevin, what is the formula for the circumference of a circle?
Pi times r squared divided by 3 plus m.
You're close, because that is the formula for, I think, an area of a circle. No, circumference of a circle is pi times the diameter. It's a very basic, very classic kind of equation, because circles are everywhere. So diameter and circumference are related by pi. That's where pi came from. Now, that's me being a little too pretentious on a Friday afternoon, but I apologize for that.
Well, now, couldn't we, so if, go ahead and click on the edge. What is the diameter of that?
This is 6 inches.
So couldn't you just make that line 6 inches long?
No, because it would not wrap all the way around. So what you got to do is you got to know the circumference, because what you're doing is you're wrapping this all the way around the circle.
Gotcha.
So that's why the length of this line is actually 18.84. 6 inches times 3.14, 18.84.
Man, that's
There you go.
I don't know, guys. I think that's a little too deep for a Friday.
That's a callback to grade school, elementary school, whatever you guys refer to it down in the States. But circumference is around, diameter is across. So there you go. So that's how you can get your entire length of the text that you need to wrap that all the way around, to do that entire wrap. And I went so far with that as to, what did I do with this one? Oh, that's something I want to show after. Okay. So let's get all this off screen, because I want to show you how far you can go with this whole circumference versus diameter idea. So that is another engraving toolpath. I don't have the sketch on screen because it's rather large. I'm not going to recalculate it because it's rather large, but I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with wrapping it around. So those of you who have been with SolidCAM Live since the beginning, you know I'm a huge movie nerd. This is a quote from Taken. This is the entire quote where Liam Neeson's on the phone and he's saying the whole thing of, I don't know where you are, I don't know who you are, but you got to get, you know, that whole thing. And if I'll find you, and I'll kill you, sort of thing. So I took that entire quote and I wrapped it around this entire cylinder. And I can do that because, again, circumference versus diameter. I know that I need to wrap this around the diameter, and I know I want to wrap it around, probably give myself maybe 4 laps around the part. So what I did was I made a sketch that was 4 times the diameter times pi. So I had this really long line, and I actually angled it in a way where I know that the endpoints of the line are at the top and the bottom of the cylinder. I made sure it passes through the center point, and then I just wrote my entire text there. So this is me being a little bit of a nerd with the whole thing there, but this could be your entire part number. This could be your logo. I think once Kevin opened up a part that was part of your default install where it has some sort of pattern. So it had that kind of like it was a wavy pattern that goes around the part. So if you really wanted to wrap something around your part, a part number, or if you got really long text, you have the ability to do that. It doesn't necessarily just have to start and end at either edge. I could actually do an entire helical kind of wrap here of the entire thing.
Well, this would work out good because I know Matt, he is going to be proposing to his wife, so he could engrave all kinds of fancy text on there for his future
yeah,
wife.
that's yeah. You could put a whole love letter on here if you put the text small enough. So, and there you go. So I have a particular set of skills I've acquired over a long career, make me a nightmare for people like you. Anyway, so that is engraving, but almost like helical engraving. The longer you make that thing, the more it'll just wrap itself around, and that's just simply because I know how wide I want this to go. Now I centered it, but it doesn't necessarily have to be centered. All you got to remember with SolidWorks and SolidCAM is once you have something that's flat and you tell it to be wrapped using the 4th axis functionality, it'll just keep projecting whatever you have that's flat to the center. So that's why I was able to make that really long sketch. And if you really want to see what it looks like, I'm curious what I did. Let's hide that and let's show that. So that entire thing I wrapped around the cylinder.
See, I thought you would have done the introductory for Star Wars.
Yeah, could have done that too. I just, to be honest, this morning when I was coming up with this idea, I was like, okay, what would be a long quote? And this was the first long quote I could remember. Okay, so any questions on wrapped engraving, wrapped geometry, multiple depths, anything like that? The only thing you can't do with depths in wrapped is progressive depth. That's probably something you need your multi-axis toolpath for, something like fourth axis simultaneous, because then you can actually choose a line or a feature that actually progressively moves down, maybe like a cone shape or something like that. Wrap geometry is only for fully concentric features or things that can be fully wrapped around a common center. The only other thing left on this part that I want to show that I didn't know we actually could do, but we can, is again the idea that if you have a pocket or a profile toolpath, all those options are open to you. Even though it's wrapped, you can still do a bunch of stuff that a wrapped toolpath would do. Like for instance, if we can open this up, you see on screen that I have that square. I'm wrapping that square around the x-axis, but I'm doing so as flat geometry. So again, flat, there it is, flat, as is. Tool, I'm just using I believe it's a 1/4 inch tool. Yeah, 1/4 inch. Levels, I am looking at this as radial again. So I just want a height of 3 inches from Z in that direction and just a depth of 1 inch. Full side left. Everything here is the same. I'm just doing a finishing pass with 20,000 step downs. But if I go to advanced, I can turn on wall draft. And I wasn't even aware that we could do this until this morning. But if I do a see-through of this, with the wall draft angle turned on, I can get a drafted pocket. So that's still wrapped, and that's still stepping down with the 45 degrees I gave it on the wall. So I'm not sure when I would use this, but it is an option that's now available. Or it was always available, I just discovered it. So I don't know if you guys think that's useful, but it is an option. So pretty much pocket, profile, any of the options available in pocket and profile can still be applied when you're doing a wrapped pocket. So any questions on that? Or anything from today, anything from before?
I do got one for you.
Okay.
Once this is done playing through. So and this question came from Eric Schaefer, one of our great customers, and when he is actually in a just SolidWorks by itself, he's asking, why is the SolidCAM Manager still on there? So we'll show you guys how to turn that off.
I don't know the answer to that, so I think you're going to have to answer that for us. So now it's time for Kevin to stump me. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to bring this back on screen just to kind of clean up the screen a little bit. And then I'm going to give you control. Let me just go to attendees. And then, so you've got control.
Okay. So if we close out of this part file. And we just open up, we'll go to Mark's recent part here. Oh, guess it's not working on.
Yeah, no, let me bring it over.
Oh.
Or it was popping up on screen on the other screen. Okay, just go ahead, take control.
Just find me just any part to open up.
Okay. Let's see. One that I'm allowed to show. Okay, let's bring up our old friend here, Patch of 3Ds.
Okay, so you'll see that we have no SolidCAM on this part at all. But the question got brought up is, why am I still seeing a SolidCAM Manager right here? And the reason why is, for one, you can just come in here and say new milling from right here. You can go to your recent parts. But if this is something that you don't want to see when you're just doing SolidWorks part files by themselves. You don't want to see the SolidCAM tab there along with the additional features here. You can turn that off by going to your settings. So if we go to our SolidCAM settings here, and Mark, you may have to drag that over.
Yeah, that usually pops on the other screen, so I'll grab it. Once it actually pops up, there it is.
Okay. So down at the bottom, under the miscellaneous, go to the settings page 2, and go ahead and turn off enable SolidCAM tab for all parts. By turning that off, you need to hit the OK button. And now if I was to close out of SolidWorks and reopen it back up along with this part, well, I think we should be able to do it just by closing out of here. And now you guys can see that that SolidCAM manager is no longer there. So if that's something that you want to get rid of, don't want it there, definitely you can turn it off there as well. You can also turn off the ones over here too. So if you guys are not using this and maybe you just want to get rid of this entire tree over here, you can do that also. So it cleans up your screen a little bit more. But just kind of remember, a lot of the stuff in here is just kind of quick, helpful stuff. Well, I don't have a SolidCAM part open, but SolidCAM quick, helpful stuff to get to stuff over here, more than coming over to tools, SolidCAM, and then picking your stuff that's right here. So everything you're seeing right here is right here as well.
So then the follow-up question would be, that stuff was introduced because we've now preloaded SolidCAM in the background, so you don't have to wait for the splash page. Correct. And all that. Is that still happening in the background, despite the fact that you've turned those off?
Nope. So it will not load that SolidCAM license anymore now that we turn that off. Now, if you guys are running a network license, that feature will not be enabled at all. So this is only enabled if you are running a standalone license or a dongle. And the reason why we did that is because if you are running on a network and you just plan on working on SolidWorks parts, but Mark is trying to get a CAM project done, you're taking up a seat even though that you're not even using the SolidCAM piece of it. So.
Okay.
And there is a couple other, if we go in here, wait for those settings to pop up again. And if you guys do turn that off, you will see a little bit more of a delay because it is going to be launching SolidWorks, or I'm sorry, SolidCAM as you're opening up stuff. So again, under the miscellaneous parameters, you can get rid of all the stuff in here. So built-in CAM definition dialog, enable the drag and drop, as well as SolidCAM on the task plane, which is over here. So this is the SolidCAM on the task plane. This would be your drag and drop right there. So you guys do have the options for that as well.
Well, I'll just turn that back on.
But that's all I have.
Okay, great. So any questions on any of that? Let me just check the questions panel.
We're looking good.
Looking good, no questions, okay. In terms of, I think on Monday of this week, I mentioned that today probably was the last day. We've got some movement going forward. We are now actually continuing SolidCAM Live for the next 2 weeks. So the next class would be September 2nd and the 9th. We're moving it to Wednesdays for next month. So if you guys are, some of you are regulars, so you probably already have signed up. So you should have seen the notification that it's been moved to the 2nd and the 9th. It should be the same login. We got in there early, so you should be able to just use the same login. So if you have any kind of calendar settings or anything like that, it should just be able to be updated. If it's your first time showing up to SolidCAM Live, you have the link already anyway, so you can use that link for next week and the week after. We will be continuing this on those days, so if you have any questions, comments, suggestions for those classes, you can use the email that Kevin's going to put in the chat section. You can use that email to just send us your parts, your questions, suggestions. If you've got parts that you don't mind showing, because remember this does get recorded and goes on YouTube, so let me know that in the email, so that way I can use that that particular file in the SolidCAM Live. If you have a question and you don't necessarily have a part file, give me an idea, even if you have some sort of really basic looking part, how you like to apply a toolpath or what challenge you have, and then we can still use that in the SolidCAM Live. As long as we got something to show, it's to everyone's benefit. You can also use that email to get a hold of me for your personalized training. So if you have your own part, but you don't want to show it on YouTube, but you'd like to get some personalized training, just contact me with the day and time that you're free. We can schedule your own personalized go-to meeting. It works the same way we're doing here, except that we use the phone. So you can actually speak with me, Kevin, or anyone else on the training team live over the phone and ask your questions live on your parts. If you have any kind of proprietary concerns or confidentiality concerns, the best way to get training is with that, the best way to get training, but without having to do SolidCAM Live or anything, is that personalized training, because that means it's just you and I in a go-to meeting, so it remains confidential. If you know anybody that can benefit from SolidCAM, give them our contact info or get them to contact us. If it gets into a demo, then you get that $100 gift card. I think since we're extending the SolidCAM Live until the next 2 weeks, you still get the $100 for the next 2 weeks. If it goes to sale, you get 20% of that sale. So depending on the amount of material that we sell someone, what packages they get, all that stuff, you get 20% of that. And that all is just based off you giving us contact information or getting them in contact with us, getting them interested in SolidCAM. Everyone benefits from that, that interaction. But like I said, we continue this for the next 2 weeks. So September 2nd, September 9th, use the same login. Until next week, Wednesday, stay safe, keep your family safe, keep busy. We will talk to you guys next week.
All right, see you everyone.